Welcome everyone to New Voices, New Rooms, and this is our Tuesday afternoon pick of the list. We are going to start with Tracy from Scholastic.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Bazanka, Field Rep Manager here at Scholastic, and I am so happy to be here today, and thank you for joining. And here are my rep picks. I am Ruby Bridges. When I grow up, my work will be precious. I will be a bridge. So begins the extraordinary and the essential picture book, I Am Ruby Bridges, by Ruby Bridges and illustrated by artivist Nicholas Smith from the 1619 project Born on the Water. This publishes on September 6th. So come along with 6-year-old Ruby as she experiences the excitement of starting a new school, the surprise of being the only student in Mrs. Henry's classroom, and the realization that she is the very first Black student to go to an all-white school. There's a glossary in the back, an author's note, an illustrator's note, and like Ruby Bridges, this book is an absolute gem. Next on the list, on goat I'll dine, on goat I'll sup, you little goat, I'll eat you up. Introducing Three Billy Goats Gruff by the dynamic duo Mac Barnett and John Clausen, publishing October 18th. This is a definite read it again picture book, filled with the type of humor that is sure to tickle the funny bone. It's absurd, amusing, and completely silly. And I guarantee that this picture book will never collect dust on the shelf. Next up, be gentle with yourself. It's hard to be human. Welcome to Wild Oak by debut author Cece Harrington, publishing September 6th. So what you need to know about Wild Oak: it's beloved by everyone at Scholastic. It seems Wild Oak's fate is already written in the stars. That's 1 star from Kirkus and another from Publishers Weekly, and more to come. And it's the most elegant read that is sure to become a modern classic. Next book, Attack of the Black Rectangles by A.S. King, publishing September 6th. In a time of rampant censorship and book bans, we need books like Attack of the Black Rectangles. This is a book that will inspire young readers to both stand up and speak up. And A.S. King has given readers the brilliant framework to do just that. This is a perfect book for those of you who have banned book clubs, and I guarantee it will create so much discussion. Next up, favorite on our list, 2 Degrees by Alan Gratz, publishing October 4th. So I want to take a moment and acknowledge Alan Gratz for always delivering books that have authenticity and integrity. Alan Gratz does not muffle the hard truths for young readers. And in 2 Degrees, he puts the reader face to face with the crisis of climate change. 2 Degrees is sure to create a new generation of climate activists and become an instant classic. Next up, The Getaway by Lamar Giles, publishing September 20th. So The Getaway is a book that goes far beyond the horror genre. It's also a book that addresses race, climate change, capitalism, class, privilege, and each chapter is just brimming with teeth-grinding, nail-biting tension. So come along on this explosive dystopian adventure into Karloff County and prepare your jaw for a very alarming ending. The next 2 books go together. So it's the official Heartstopper coloring book as well as the Heartstopper yearbook. Both are publishing on October 18th. So the world, and I'm not exaggerating, is in a state of O's mania right now. This is an obsession with all things Alice Oseman. So now I don't want any of you to have FOMO, So please get your orders in ASAP for the official Heartstopper coloring book and the yearbook before it goes out of stock, which it definitely will. Next on the list is Freestyle by Gail Galligan, publishing on October 18th. So let's just go down the list. Competitive dancing, yo-yoing, New York City, plus inclusivity, cultural differences, and sibling rivalry. Yes, Freestyle has it all. And Gail Galligan has really delivered the perfect graphic novel. My advice, stock up. Another graphic novel to stock up on is The Tryout from indie darling Christina Soontorvat, published and illustrated by Joanna Cacao, publishing September 6th. So give me a G for graphics. Yet another standout graphic novel from Scholastic's graphic imprint. The Tryout is exceptional. It's based on Christina Soontorvat's middle school experience of trying out for the cheerleading team. It's inclusive, it deals with microaggressions, but will definitely have the reader cheering for more. Okay, this is my personal favorite, Caves by Nell Cross and illustrated by Kaylin Chalk. This publishes on October 4th. So just take a moment when you're in Edelweiss, click on the content, and then go ahead and click on links so that you could read the full digital F&G. Wander through this lush and lovely nonfiction picture book. You will not regret it. This book is filled with so much wonder and can be read on 2 levels, as a nonfiction picture book, as well as a lovely poetic story. And the illustrations are just breathtaking. Next up is Lego Race Cars, which already published, but just a reminder that anything that Klutz and Lego does together is just an automatic hit with kids. So stock up. Kids can build 10 race cars while learning all about aerodynamics and other STEM-related things. It also includes a 3-foot track so kids can race all of the race cars that they built. And last but not least, a glimpse into 2023. We Are Here by Tammy Charles and Brian Collier, publishing January 3rd, 2023. Now, we all know how poetic and powerful All Because You Matter was. Well, Tammy and Brian have done it again with the triumphant picture book, We Are Here. Take a moment, look through all of these beautiful, lovely illustrations and the poetic words, and fall in love with yet another book. More to come, hopefully soon. So watch out. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of NVNR.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And up next, we have Mackenzie with Hachette Book Group.
Hey, I'm Mackenzie Braun from Hachette. I'm going to be talking about some fall titles, both adult and kids, just a few kids at the end. I'm sorry in advance for the cough. I've lost my voice a little bit. But first up is actually technically not a fall title, it's a summer title, The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. But this is coming out later this month at the very end of August. And I wanted to start off with it because it's one of my favorite books from the summer list. This is a You've Got Mail-esque romance set in a fantasy world. And our 2 protagonists are Mercy, who is an undertaker, and Hart, who is a federal marshal style character who's tasked with bringing undead bodies into her undertaking business, and they are work nemesis. And they're both dreadfully lonely in their respective lives, but through a little bit of magic, they become pen pals without realizing that they're writing to their work nemesis. This book is just so witty, so delightful. I read it on vacation earlier this summer, and it was like the perfect vacation read. And then next up is Less is Lost. I just wanted to touch on this one since it's one of our biggest titles for the fall. If you don't already know, this is the follow-up to the Pulitzer Prize winning novel Less. And in this new story, Les is once again unsuccessfully trying to flee his demons by taking literary gigs that send him gallivanting all around the country. And Andrew Sean Greer has delivered the same magic and joy and wit from his previous novel. And it will surely be a balm for many people looking for something a little bit lighter and funnier this fall. We've also gotten amazing author blurbs for this from like Marlon James, David Sedaris, Madeline Miller, Katie Kitamura, and many, many more. And then next up is My Pen is the Wing of a Bird. This is a really moving short story collection compiled together from 18 different Afghan women, some of whom are writing in here anonymously. These short pieces of fiction just really encapsulate what it's like to be a woman in Afghanistan right now and provide really unique insight into this sort of current inflection point in Afghanistan's history. These stories are just really powerful and beautiful. They really sort of engender empathy, and some of them are really short. It's really easy to dip in and read a few, so I highly recommend doing so. And then next up is Paris Dalincourt is About to Crumble. I am a big reader of romance, so I had to mention one of our favorites coming out this fall. This is another baking romance from Alexis Hall, taking place in the same sort of baking competition show from his previous novel, Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake. This is an adorable and moving and messy in more ways than one opposites attract romance about facing your insecurities and finding love in the process. And Alexis Hall has had a fabulous year this year with our very own Lady for a Duke coming out in May, and Source Books also had husband material that just came out last week, which I'm very excited to read. So yeah, and then next up, I just wanted to touch on a couple nonfiction books. The first, The Revolutionary Samuel Adams. It's probably our biggest history book for the fall, which is a comprehensive biography of Samuel Adams from Stacy Schiff, who is the author of The Witches and Cleopatra. And in this book, she paints a portrait of Samuel Adams and his role during the Revolution as the propaganda master, which you can imagine definitely has some takeaway points for our current state of affairs. We also just got in our first author blurb from Ron Chernow, who said that this is a glorious book that is as entertaining as it is vitally important. And then another nonfiction book coming out this fall that I'm really excited about is Con Artist. This is a really fun narrative nonfiction read for anyone that's been eating up all of the like scam, fraud, con, forgery content that we've all been given in the last year, from like the Anna Delvey TV show to all the Elizabeth Holmes stuff, etc. This is part memoir, part true crime from one of the most prolific art forgers of all time. And I personally would be really excited about this book if it were just about Tony Tetreault, since he's so fascinating. But the fact that it's written about him, that it's written by the man himself, I think just makes this extra fascinating. And so this is great for a true crime reader, but also anyone interested in art or art history as well. And then next up is The Light Pirate. This is coming out in December and is definitely one of the biggest rep favorites on our fall list, and is quite difficult to describe in a minute, but I'm going to do my best. This is a coming of age story about a girl named Wanda who was born during a devastating hurricane, after which she was named Hurricane Wanda. Rather than post-apocalyptic, I describe this as sort of like near future fiction or near future apocalyptic fiction, and tells the story of a family's struggle to survive against the pervasive and brutal effects that our changing climate has brought on the world. And sort of in the vein of Emily St. John Mandel or Karen Thompson Walker, this novel has some speculative fiction elements woven throughout and really touches on some urgent and important themes that we are all grappling with today. And then lastly, on the adult side of things, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite novels coming out in early 2023, The Sense of Wonder. This is a propulsive and clever novel from Matthew Salesses and follows Juan, who is the first Asian American NBA star, and his girlfriend Carrie, who is a big-time studio producer of K-dramas, as they struggle to navigate the expectations and microaggressions that Asian Americans often face in the entertainment and sports industries. And this is a sports story, it's a love story, and it's also just a super smart look at how racism and toxic masculinity can affect even those that are experts in their fields. Even if you think you don't like reading about sports, I would not let that dissuade you from reading this. I do not watch basketball. I do not know anything really about basketball, and I tore through this in 2 days. And then next up, just a few kids titles. First up, I wanted to touch on Farmhouse from the amazing, wonderful Sophie Blackall. Sophie is really prolific sort of all over the publishing world, but it's been 4 years since we published Hello Lighthouse, which won her second Caldecott Medal. And in that same vein, this is a really rich, nostalgia-filled ode to the life of a farmhouse and the family that lives inside it, and is actually based on the story of a real family. So for those of you living out in the country, this is perfect for you. And for those of you like me who live in the city, this is also perfect for you, because who doesn't like reading stories about lush farmland and countrysides? And then next up, The Door of No Return. This is definitely one of the most exciting kids books we have on the list this coming fall. This is a powerful coming of age story for both middle grade and teen readers alike from the fabulous Kwame Alexander. This is a timeless read that tells the story of an 11-year-old boy and his family living along the banks of the Kwanda River in Africa when his world is turned upside down and he's sent across land and sea away from everything he knows and loves. And this is a novel told in verse, which gives it a really amazing pace, and has received praise from like Rick Riordan, Lev Grossman, and Lupita Nyong'o. Lupita, I think, said it best when she said that this novel humanizes the experience of the people who knew the flavors of freedom long before they knew the sting of slavery. And we also have a really great picture book coming from Kwame Alexander in early January called An American Story, so keep an eye out for that as well. And then last but not least, on the YA side, I just wanted to touch on Anne of Greenville, which is coming out from Disney. This is the first book in the newly formed Melissa de la Cruz Studio imprint, and is a YA novel from Mariko Tamaki, who has been primarily known for her work in the YA graphic novel space with This One Summer that she co-authored, and Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. This new novel is a reimagining, I'd say, rather than a retelling of the story of Anne of Green Gables. In this version, Anne is a queer Japanese-American girl who loves music and longs to be understood, but is sort of forced out of her comfort zone when she has to relocate with her family to a new town where she knows no one, and is thrust into a new school environment, dealing with bullies and new friends and an unexpected love triangle to boot. So yeah, that is Anne of Greenville. And that is it for me. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie. And up next, we have Jenny from HarperCollins.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Jenny Sheridan from HarperCollins Children's Division, and I tried to pick out a few books today that either are set in one of these regions or the author lives in one of these regions. That's not all of these books, but I did try to focus on that as I was picking. It was an embarrassment of riches trying to pick which books to talk about from the fall season. I also just wanted to mention that the YA suspense, magic, and horror panel tonight at 7 includes two of my authors, Justina Ireland and Tiffany Jackson. So I really hope that you'll come. I think that all of the authors really know their stuff, and it's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful panel. I'm going to start with, as soon as it stops spinning. Okay, The Sour Grape. You know this series, the Food Group series, I guess we call it. This is the latest in that. It's a best-selling series. It's very, very much beloved by the indies. This is The Sour Grape, and I think that this one may be my favorite so far, about a little grape who is really resentful of everybody. And I think that kids will really be able to relate to that sourness. And I love that the grandparents in this book are raisins. That's like my favorite part of it. But I just want to give you a heads up on this one because it's coming and everybody's going to want it. So it's really exciting. Then the next one is The Stocking Stuffer, which is a Christmas title. I know there are a million books that are Christmas holiday specific, and it gets a little overwhelming, but this one really struck me as particularly cute. The trim size is such that you might even be able to fit this into a stocking. It has a real elf on the shelf kind of vibe to it. I think it's a new classic, and I really hope that you will either take some time with the F&G or when it comes into the store, or even just the Edelweiss PDF. Just take a look. It's a little wordy, but it really is a lovely book for the holidays. So I did want to call that out. That comes out September 1st, The Sour Grape November 1st. Next up is for kids a little bit older. This is Going Places, and it's the story of the Green Book, which, they made a major motion picture about it. It's in people's consciousness, but this is for a younger reader. Sorry, we're getting off the where is it? Anyway, it's this one would be great for older kids. It's got a lot of text, but the art is really engaging and it really moves along. It's the story of John Hugo Green. The author lives in the Bronx, is a Coretta Scott King Honor winner, and won the nonfiction award from the Children's Book Guild in Washington, D.C. for her entire body of work. It really is a beautiful book and has wonderful back matter and a timeline in the back. I mean, I think that this one is the real winner. And again, for an older fan of picture books, it really can't be beat. Next up, moving into middle grade, Mary Downing Hahn is pretty well. She comes to us from HMH Clarion, and I'm thrilled to have her on our list. She's primarily known for writing horror, but this book, I picked up the ARC and I just couldn't put it down. The thing that really struck me about this book, it's a thriller. It's about two little girls who it's summertime and they're riding their bikes and they're bored and they find an abandoned treehouse and they see something from up in the treehouse that is a crime, and they think that they now have evidence against someone that they know, and they go to the authorities, and it turns, not to give it away, but it turns out that they're wrong, and everyone has to sort of pay the consequences for that. When I finished reading this book, I was so satisfied. I thought the ending was so satisfying, and I really would love to be able to put this into the hands of your booksellers, into the hands of your voracious middle grade readers. It just was such a satisfying thriller for that demographic. So I wanted to call it out. I don't know if I said it goes on sale September 9th. Next up, probably don't need to talk about this book, but I want you to know that it's coming if you don't know already. Colin Malloy's latest, The Stars Did Wander Darkling, is sort of a Stranger Things kind of story. It reminded me kind of a combination of sort of Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets Stand By Me. A strong group of young friends discover that the abandoned hotel in the town that is being developed and renovated, it holds evil spirits that are taking over the minds of the adults. So how bad could that be? I wanted to point out it's been a while since and his earlier books, he has several, including a series, were so, the market share of the indies was particularly strong. So I want this on your radar. Several of his books have been optioned for movies and TV. He's a literal rock star. And we're really hoping that those projects will enhance the awareness and love for this title. So I'm really excited to be putting this out. It comes out on September 13th. He doesn't live in our region, but he's a lovely, lovely guy, and we really hope for all success for this book. Next up is Nothing Sung. This is moving into YA. I'm sorry, I'm going so fast, you're not able to keep up with me. Nothing Sung and Nothing Spoken. This author lives in Austria, but still considers North Carolina their home, so I felt like it was worthy of including in this particular presentation, but it also happens to be one of my favorite books on the list. It's set in Berlin, just as Hitler is coming into power, centers around a group of teenage girls who are friends, who are sort of witnessing the rise of fascism in their city, and not quite necessarily early on picking up on the dangers of that, because they are so enamored of jazz, and they discover these sort of underground jazz clubs and start sneaking out at night, and you can sort of smell the smoke and taste the whiskey, and it's just so rich and vivid and atmospheric, and just like that analogy of a frog in a pot. Totalitarianism is bubbling up under them sort of without them even realizing it. It is such a great book. And I think that it's a cautionary tale, but it also has a wonderful lesbian romance in it. And it's just fantastic. So please, please, please take a look at the ARC, which I believe that you can find to order in the galley room. My final YA title that I wanted to call out is The Restless Dark. This author is from Florida, lives in Nashville now, has an earlier novel, which was such a big favorite of mine, called The River Has Teeth, which comes out in paperback on September 13th. This is a story of a girl who survived a serial killer and has decided to sort of get closure to go to a contest sponsored by a true crime podcast to try to find the remains of the serial killer who killed himself before they had a chance to apprehend him. Meanwhile, there's a reporter who is also a narrator, and a third young woman who is thinks she herself might have a serial killer tendency. So they've all come together to try to so it's a bit of a game, but it's also a podcast and a true crime, and what could be better? It's just a page turner for your fans of true crime and of podcasts. And finally, I wanted to give you a little sneak peek into the next season. This book, The Flag, is a picture book, comes out January 31st. So maybe for those lingering gift cards, but I think that this is a really important book, That Flag. As I say, it's a picture book. The author lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a wonderful author letter in the Edelweiss catalog about the writing of this book. And it's the story of a girl an African-American girl, friendly with a white girl, but the white girl's family has a Confederate flag, and the parents warn her, the African-American girl, stay away from those people. And it really is, I think, beautiful illustrations, but I think such an important book about the way that these sorts of symbols mean different things to different people and how they affect the innocent, the children in our communities, grappling with all of those differences, who they really have no say, they have no agency around this. And I think that this is one that is going to maybe be a little bit controversial, but is going to speak to kids where they live. So I'm as I say, I'm thrilled about this list. Remind you again about that author dinner tonight, where two of my superstars are going to be speaking. And I probably haven't used up a fraction of my time. I was so nervous about getting through all these titles. I hope I didn't short shrift anything. Please contact me if you have any questions at all, or your local rep. And thanks again for having me. Enjoy the rest of the show.
You timed it perfectly, Jenny. All right, up next, we have Valerie with Sourcebooks.
Thank you so much, Eileen. I am so excited to present our first title, which is from one of our newest acquisitions, Duo Press. Everyone at Sourcebooks was so thrilled when we acquired Duo Press. They have the most beautiful, high-quality books, and Yellow Like a Submarine, Purple Like the Rain definitely falls into that category. This board book is gorgeous, fun, and slightly quirky, and it teaches little ones about the different colors of the rainbow while using song titles from beloved classics. As a parent, I loved reading this one with my child. You get this feeling of nostalgia when you read the song titles, whether it's me as a child of the 80s or my husband who's a Beatle maniac. It's just, there's something for everyone to love and smile about in this book as you read it. There's also a guide at the very end that tells you all of the song titles that are referenced in the book. This book is out right now. Next is Blue Baboon Finds Her Tune from author-illustrator Helen and Thomas Doherty. Hopefully some of you got to see them on the Children's Breakfast panel earlier today. They are two of the loveliest people that I've ever virtually met in my entire life, so I hope you had that opportunity. They previously wrote and illustrated the Snatcha book together, which was a #1 Indie Next pick, and they also worked on the Storybook Night and Pirate Nell's Tale to Tell. Blue Baboon is just such a gorgeous picture book with a simple, lyrical, rhyming story about a blue baboon who finds a tune, a bassoon, even a monsoon. As you can tell, every phrase in the story ends with that oon sound. This is just the perfect bedtime book to read to your child, and it's coming out in September. Next is Sugar Pie Lullaby. Sorry, I drink a lot of coffee and I speak very quickly. Sugar Pie Lullaby comes from the winner of the 2022 Coretta Scott King Award winner, Carol Boston Weatherford. This is for all of my Motown fans out there. For anyone looking to engage kids in a really fun musical story hour, this book is for you. You will not be able to stop yourself from singing along as you read to children. I will not sing to you because I love y'all and you don't need to hear that. But as you flip through these different spreads, the songs will just come right into your soul. I also just wanted to note that we do have several books coming, or do already have several books from Carol on our list, and all of them really exemplify Black joy. So we have Me and My Mama, and then we have Grandma and Me, and then we have another one coming in October called Me and the Family Tree. So all together, these books make up a really lovely collection for a table display, or are really perfect for any child's first library. Sugar Pie Lullaby is coming out in February. Next is Playtime for Restless Rascals. This is one of my personal favorites on the list. This is from legendary author and poet Nikki Grimes, and it is illustrated by Elizabeth Zunon, who her illustrations are just so gorgeous. They're the kind of book you just want to sit on the spread and just stare at them and look at all of the little details that she puts in there. This is the third book from this duo. So their first book was Bedtime for Sweet Creatures, which was a bedtime book. Their second book was Off to See the Sea, which was a bath time book. And then this one, Playtime for Restless Rascals, showcases a little one playing in all sorts of situations, from indoors, outside in the rain, to the snow. This book will bring a smile to your face and either remind you of when you used to be a little restless rascal, or it might have you thinking of a certain child in your life who is one. Playtime for Restless Rascals comes out in September. Next is So Much Snow. This is a really unique, quirky book that comes from an author illustrator out of South Korea. It's one of those books you really have to experience. It's hard to see it on an Edelweiss title record. So please email me if you'd like a sample copy. I'd love to get one into your hands. There are very few words in this book, which adds to the mystery of it, but it starts off with some text about how it's starting to snow. And you get little glimpses of what these children are doing in the snow, but you don't get the full picture until you fold out a big spread at the end that shows you that they are building an enormous, truly enormous snowman. This is a great winter book to set out if you want to avoid being holiday specific. This one comes out in November. Next, if you are looking for holiday specific titles for your holiday newsletters, social posts, or displays, then Sourcebooks has you covered with our next two books. This first one is How to Catch a Reindeer. It's from one of our biggest brands, the How to Catch brand, which has sold over 12 million copies at this point. This is actually one of my favorite brands to talk to children about. Every child I have met in the last 6 years knows this brand, and the minute you tell them there's a book that they're not aware of yet, they literally light up and they want it immediately. These are fun and commercial, but they also have a bunch of STEAM concepts built into them, which feels like an added bonus when you're a parent. How to Catch a Reindeer comes out in October. Our next book. So the one sad thing for reindeers is that sometimes they get really tired and there's a lot of pressure to pull Santa's sleigh. So what happens if they are too tired to do that? Never fear, because unicorns are here. Unicorn Christmas is the newest picture book from Diana Murray and Luke Flowers, who also worked on the Indie National bestsellers Unicorn Day and Unicorn Night. I'm very thankful for them because I was not aware that unicorns even celebrated Christmas, but they do. So for example, they send out their Christmas cards via shooting stars, which I really wish I could do. That would make my life a lot easier. And what's so nice about this story is the unicorns really do help Santa deliver presents to kids. They are a lot like reindeer, except with a little more sparkle. This book will be coming out in October. Next, we're going to move into middle grade with one of my favorite authors. She's my personal favorite. This is The Other Side of the River by Alda P. Dobbs. Her first book with us, The Barefoot Dreams of Petra Luna, was a Purabelle Prey Honor pick, an Indie's Introduce and Indie Next pick, a Blue Bonnet Master List selection, a New York Public Library Best Book of 2021, and an NPR Best Book of 2021. There are actually more accolades that I could keep going and going and going with, but Eileen has me on a timetable and I am not going to stray from that. So we're going to keep going. Other Side of the River is the companion book to The Barefoot Dreams of Petra Luna. The previous book was based on the stories of Alda's great-grandmother who fled across Mexico during the Mexican Revolution and fled across the border into Texas. In this new book, Petra and her family are in Texas. They're trying to decide if they want to stay. They'd always been told America was this amazing land where all their dreams would come true, but that's not quite the case once they get here. They're in squalid conditions. They're dealing with a smallpox outbreak. And Petra is still dreaming of learning for that day when she finally starts to learn how to read. That's been her dream throughout both books. And essentially her family is trying to decide whether or not they should stay in America or if they should try to go back to Mexico and rebuild from there. And again, I just want to call out the amazing author here. When I told her that my stepdaughter read her first book and loved it, she immediately took down my address and sent my stepdaughter just this lovely package of bookmarks and signed book plates and stickers and all these extras. And she's said before to me, if you know any child who wants me to talk to them over Zoom about the Mexican Revolution for a school project, I would love to do it. And she's genuinely that person. So I just wanted to make sure to call her to your attention. And I hope you guys have her first book in your store and you'll have the second one soon. Next is The Girl in White by Lindsay Curry. Lindsay is another author on our list who just really gets the assignment of being a middle grade author. She's warm, fun, funny, and just really knows how to engage with students. She does tons of schools and bookstore visits to promote her spooky stories all year long. The Girl in White is our third book with Lindsay, and it's coming out in September. Lindsay's books really have a Mary Downing Hahn feel to them. I heard Jenny mention her earlier, and this one in particular really gave me some Wait Till Helen Comes vibes. Her stories are spooky, but they have a lot of heart and a lot of charm and really show the main characters dealing with real issues that tweens encounter. So in this book, we follow Mallory, a girl whose family just moved into a town that has a reputation for being the most haunted town in America. One of the most notorious ghosts is a ghost called Sweet Molly, and very soon Mallory finds herself in direct opposition and connection to this very angry ghost. In addition to trying to fit in a new town, feeling homesick for her previous home, and overcoming misconceptions, Mallory will also need to dig deep into the mystery of Sweet Molly and uncover the truth of what really happened hundreds of years ago before someone gets hurt. So that's it for The Girl in White. And next we're going to move into YA really quickly before I run out of time. First is Wild as the Witch. This is the second YA fantasy standalone from instant New York Times bestselling author Rachel Griffin. Y'all voted this book onto the August, September Indie Next list, so thank you so much for doing that. She is currently on a 3-week tour, going to tons of independent bookstores right now. This new book is at its heart a really beautiful story about self-acceptance. Our main character, Iris, is a teen witch who's had to uproot her whole life after a spell goes awry and gets her into trouble. She's been basically given the "this is your last chance" speech from the High Witch Council. And now she lives on a nature preserve where she writes curses that she never means to send. Kind of like when you write an email and then you delete it before you write the real email. That's what she does on a daily basis. These curses are really for people who get on her nerves and drive her crazy. And no one does that more than Pike, the witch-hating intern who works at the nature preserve. One day she writes a very nasty curse for Pike, a curse that will turn him into what he hates the most, a witch. And she's about to destroy it when an owl swoops in, grabs the curse, and flies off. And this is absolutely horrific, because if Iris does not get this curse back before the owl dies, then the curse will be released. And not only Pike will receive the curse, but everyone within her vicinity will as well. Everyone will be turned into a witch, and not everyone will survive the process. So she has no choice but to convince Pike to help her go into the forest and search for this owl. And along the way, they of course begin to start having some feelings for each other. This is a enemies to lovers kind of romance. But she's not sure that she can allow that. What if she reveals herself to him fully, her witchness, her flaws, her insecurities, and he rejects her? That's not something she's sure she can recover from. Wild as the Witch just came out last week, and I think it is going to be a favorite on your holiday list.
And we have to wrap it up. I'll let you finish this one, Valerie.
This one's really fast. So this is Monsters Born and Made. It's a debut from Tanvi Burwa. It's a South Asian inspired tale and a dystopian fantasy. So if you love the Hunger Games, definitely check this one out. And that one comes out in September. It was a Publisher's Lunch Buzz book pick, and we had a maximum shelf for it. So we're really excited about this one. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And up next, we have Bria, who's an editor with Penguin Random House.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here virtually for my first New Voices, New Rooms event. I think aside from Children's Institute and Twitter, this is the only other time I've spoken about Joy Revolution publicly, so thank you all for having me. I'm just going to introduce the imprint before getting into our inaugural titles. So in October 2020, I read about Joy Revolution. Random House Children's Books first announced the launch of this new, exciting YA imprint dedicated to diverse romance novels, led by New York Times bestselling authors and literary power couple Nicola and David Yoon, and overseen by Wendy Loja, VP, Senior Exec Editor of Delacorte Press. But they were still looking for an editor To work on love stories starring people of color, written by people of color, sounded like an absolute dream, one that somehow turned into my reality when I came in on January, I think it was January 19th, 2021, especially since I've been reading romance novels since I was 11 or 12. What I sincerely appreciate is that the Yoons are genuinely excited about this mission, as am I, and knowing that they're using their wonderful daughter as a guiding light for the imprint so she and every other young person of color can see themselves reflected specifically in romance novels makes this venture so incredibly special. We often see BIPOC characters in issue books dealing with very real struggles, trauma, and hardships, but we need to balance that out with tales of joy and happiness, as the Yoons say, to show the full breadth of our humanity. So starting in January 2023, we'll do just that. And up first is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by New York Times bestselling author Talia Hibbert, her YA debut. This dual POV novel tells the story of a snarky yet lovable content creator, Celine, battling her clean-cut athletic academic rival and former best friend, Brad, over the course of a multi-part enrichment program in the English and Scottish wilderness to see who's really top of their class. Along the way, they spark old and possibly new romantic feelings. It's interesting because I wanted to work with Talia for quite a while before acquiring Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. I was a fan of the first two books in the Brown Sisters trilogy before signing her up, and truly Talia's books helped to distract me at the start of the pandemic. She was one of the main reasons why I fell in love with adult romance as a genre. So of course I'd buy anything from her. And what started off as a synopsis turned into a fantastic, cheeky novel about childhood friends turned enemies, turned lovers. I think what makes Talia's writing stand out is her British humor. The banter between the characters keeps you going. I'm often drawn to novels with great dialogue, and this certainly has it. Another standout element to Highly Suspicious is that there are two Black characters trying to survive in the wilderness. Joy Revolution is focused on POC and blowing through expectations and stereotypes. Nicola, David, and I found it exciting to see brown teens trekking through the British woodlands. You just don't see that setting and setup often. And personally, as a curvy girl, I love seeing the body positivity in this book and on this beautiful cover. The way in which Talia discusses mental health and OCD is also refreshing and adds great value to the story overall. I 100% think that fans of Get a Life, Take a Hint, and Act Your Age will enjoy this novel, but I also have no doubt that Highly Suspicious will attract new fans and gain Talia an even bigger following. The reader is anyone who's looking for upper YA contemporary romance, for those looking for a good belly laugh, but also want their heartstrings pulled, and anyone who enjoys the classic rivalry to romance trope. Highly Suspicious goes on sale January 3rd. So moving on to Queen Bee by USA Today bestselling author Amelie Howard. The novel was originally and appropriately pitched as a YA Bridgerton meets the Count of Monte Cristo. I've long been a fan of both historical romance as well as retellings with a twist. And Queen Bee follows a teen girl, Ella Dalvey, who goes to London under a fake identity at the start of a social season to exact revenge on the childhood best friend, Poppy, who once betrayed her over the son of an uptight duke. And this boy, now a handsome young man really, is considered to be the town's most eligible bachelor. I remember the Yoons and I reading this very quickly on submission. The plot intrigued us immediately, and that's one of the main things we look for in a Joy Revolution novel. I've seen online conversations discuss the way in which romance novels rely solely or very heavily on tropes while forgetting a strong plot and compelling subplots, character motivations, and an interesting driving force. Who are the characters without the trope, essentially? But Queen Bee has this fantastic second chance romance that will hook readers, but then there's fun revenge plot and a quest to become the Queen Bee to spite the social climbing female antagonist. Amelie Howard is an expert at writing historical romance for adults, and I believe fans of her adult books like The Beast of Bestwick and Always Be My Duchess will find this book equally as unputdownable. I'd give this to fans of Netflix's Bridgerton, especially the second season, which also starred a clever South Asian protagonist. This is a great anti-historical Regency romp for teens and adults. And like Highly Suspicious, I definitely think this will appeal to a wide range of readers. Currently, this is our only historical romance, so that it helps to stand out on our list. And if you're like Nicola and me, who want to see more brown and Black girls with agency and big fancy dresses dancing around ballrooms, then you'll want to pick this book up when it goes on sale April 4th. In both of our spring 2023 books, you'll get witty heroines, charming heroes, and love stories worth rooting for. And of course, there's nuance and joy. I said this in the press release for Joy Revolution, but I seriously could not be happier and prouder of the books that will kick off this imprint's growing list. I'll also quote the Yoon's similar sentiment. Talia and Amelie's stories perfectly embody our passionate belief that love is what makes life worth living for each and every one of us. The covers for both Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute were recently revealed by The Hollywood Reporter, so please check out that great piece if you haven't already. The official Joy Revolution page with buy links and book descriptions is also now live. And because I have a little bit of extra time and we only have 2 books to show right now, I would love to just give a sneak peek and mention one of our books for summer 2023. It's called House Party. Edited by Justin A. Reynolds, House Party is a novel of interconnected stories in the vein of Blackout and Let It Snow that follows 10 teen high school classmates intermingling for one epic life-changing night at the last house party before the seniors' graduation. The characters are defined by classic archetypes: the class clown, the popular girl, the jock, the new kid, etc. Every reader will find someone to relate to. This story is set in a huge McMansion in a wealthy Chicago neighborhood. And for romance trope lovers, we tried to cover them all: enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, love triangle, misconnection, forced proximity. We have an awesome list of contributors, including Angeline Booley, Jerry Kraft, Natasha Diaz, Lamar Giles, Christina Hammonds-Reed, Ryan LaSala, Justin Reynolds, Randy Ribbe, Shamili Saeed Mendez, and Jasmine Warga. They all bring something very special to the project. The commercial hook of the story, all the fun and love, that's what makes this a Joy Revolution books. And fans of party movies like Booksmart and Superbad will love it. I also appreciate the diversity in authors and characters, and I think readers might actually enjoy just how interwoven these character stories are. So yeah, I can't wait for this novel to be released next summer. And with that, thanks again for letting me chat a little bit about our imprint's mission and our upcoming books.
Thank you so much, Bria, and we're very excited about your new imprint, Joy Revolution. And up next, we have Stacy with Ingram Publisher Services.
Hi, everyone. I'm filling in for Eric Strager. So that's that on that. I'm the IPS rep in New England, so slightly adjacent to y'all. These are his picks. I have not made any replacements or anything. So these are the books he wants you all to pay attention to, and I think he chose some great ones. First up is from Aperture, Diane Arbus Revelations. This is a doozy, as in it is a very, very big book, both in size at 352 pages. It is huge coffee table size. It's heavy, 200 duotone, 300 4-color images. It has some new material of essays, technique analysis, contributions from other writers, excerpts from her own journals, notebooks, letters, everything. It is one of Aperture's best-selling books of their entire history, and it is also the sort of most complete Diane Arbus monograph that has existed, and it first came out 35 years ago, I believe. So this is a very big deal. If you don't have the space on your shelf, then at least make sure it is in your inventory system, so when it gets really, really big publicity hits, you'll be able to snap it up right away. That'll be very important to make your customers happy. Next up, Revolution is Love, A Year of Black Trans Liberation. This is a really cool book and one of my picks of the season as well. So early on in 2020, when everybody was stuck at home and then everyone was paying attention to the news and terrible things happened in the Midwest that caught everyone's attention, lots of people got out into the streets and started marching and speaking up for the rights of others in louder ways than they had before and in larger numbers. And in New York City, Queen Jean decided to start a weekly sort of combination protest, celebration, community, togetherness, part rave, part, anger, grieving kind of gathering that changed every single week. And so for a whole year, every Thursday night, people would gather in the park across from Stonewall and just try to be heard and to lift each other up and commune together. And so this book is a collection of photos from lots of folks who were there, as well as, commentary from people who were there, interviews, lots of text by, visitors and also notable sort of activists and writers in the queer community in New York and beyond. And with, very, very strong focus specifically on Black trans folks who, as many of you are probably very aware, sort of have the highest rates of really bad things happening to them, to say it quietly. I know you all know how that's going. So celebrate, bring this in, put it right front and center, have some joy backed by some, proper righteous anger. This is actually a very different list than the one that I was given. The Rebels wardrobe, menswears, Renegade. This should be pretty self-explanatory. Gestalten does their big, gorgeous coffee table books. This is a late winter, January 2023 kind of bump. It's cool. It's very, very cool for those who are both into the history of menswear and fashion and style, as well as sort of the classic icons of that area. So anyone who wants to have sort of some exemplar looks at both the past and how to bring some of that, pizzazz into the present, this is a good one for you. What's next? The getaways. Vans. Everybody's getting out in vans still. It's still a big deal. Lots of people picked them up during the pandemic for the first time. Other folks, got around to fixing theirs up. Despite the rising gas prices, this is still kind of the easiest and cheapest way to road trip and see parts of the country you would not otherwise be able to get to. And that's pretty great. Next. Wildlife by Gestalten, most complete look at the life and work of Charlie Harper to ever exist. There's absolutely no competition to this book whatsoever. There's at least one publisher who put out a much slimmer, lower priced volume that was not nearly as complete. This is an authorized edition from the Charlie Harper Foundation and was put together with their assistance. So again, Gestalten doing great art books. Serendipity, this is cool. So Oscar Farinetti is the co-founder of Italy, which has 30 odd locations around the world. This book is an English translation of an Italian bestseller that is all about the ways that sort of common food and drinks that we enjoy came about accidentally. So there's some classic kind of stories about the Caesar salad or Kellogg's cornflakes and things like that. And you get sort of the little snippets of the history of these things, trivia, anecdotes, interviews with people who have, deep knowledge or have, worked most contemporarily with whatever the thing is that's being profiled. He interviews the CEO of Coca-Cola, for example, to talk about the history of that. So it really is runs the gamut of time and what it includes and people. And if it was a bestseller in Italy, it should be able to do well here. This is an easy hand sell for foodies. So if someone comes in and says, my so-and-so is a foodie, but they don't cook, give them this easiest holiday gift. I Dreamed I Was Emily Dickinson's boyfriend, Ron Kircha, probably the only poet I know who had a poem that was the inspiration for an Oscar animated film. So that's kind of cool. This is a delightful, sweet, warm little collection of poetry that sort of blends religion and mythology with kind of contemporary life and emotions in ways that are often very, very funny. There's a little poem about Orpheus and Eurydice, and Orpheus sort of graffitiing on a wall how much he loves Eurydice, so that when she comes back from the underworld, it's the first thing she sees, but she didn't come back. And so every day he has to walk by and see it and remember their romance. And it's just like, Next, How to Be a Spy from Little Gestalten. I mean, budding spy masters, come on. How can you not want to, teach kids how to sneak around the house and peer into secret places and do sneaky things. Maybe with some supervision, maybe, you know, do this with them and you guys can like go around the neighborhood more Harriet the Spy style rather than, you know, poking around the home. Anyway, $29.95 from Loper Spelton. Next, Gross Factopia. This is the third installment in this really cool series that threads together lots of different facts that are all connected to one another in sort of a choose your own adventure type way. It is gross. And so if you don't like gross, well, just cover your eyes and hand the book to a kid who really likes gross things and watch them get really squeezed out by it and then also want to shove it under everyone's noses. This whole series is just fun. Budding Jeopardy champions, great for them too. And I guess that was it. Yeah, so anyway, those are Eric's picks for you for this season. And I've got nothing else for you, so enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And up next, also with Ingram, we have Katie Glasgow, and I think she's doing Two Rivers, but you can correct me.
No, I am. I'm doing Two Rivers.
Okay.
Hi there. So I'm Katie Glasgow, and I am starting out with, if I can get my notes up where I'm supposed to go. So I wanted to let you know that we also have a stock offer just in case. It's coming in September on 9/1, and it's all titles published by that date and running through 11/30, and it can be used multiple times. First up is a group of titles from Zando. Zando is a relatively new publisher and is making a big splash with their current releases. It was started by Molly Stern and her stellar group of cohorts for the purpose of really getting better deals for their authors. They have great collaborations with celebrities and powerhouse authors coming, so don't miss it. The first title, The Butcher and the Wren, is going to be huge. So the author is the host of the wildly popular podcast Morbid, and it's a great cat and mouse type mystery featuring a sly serial killer and the medical examiner trying to catch him. The author is also an autopsy technician by trade, so a lot of those details are very, very authentic. The Empress is next, and this is a Netflix tie-in for the series of the same name. While it isn't coming out until after the show premieres, which is a little strange, so it's something of a reverse adaptation, we expect there to be a lot of buzz and interest around it. It's perfect for the Bridgerton, Crown, Downton Abbey crowd who's looking for new binges on the movie TV tables around your stores. The next title, I Am Okay to Feel, is an adorable storybook that came to them by way of their partnership with Karamo Brown of Queer Eye fame. It explores the emotions and uncertainty that kids feel in situations where unexpected stress has popped up, and it allows them to work through it in a positive way. The next title is Scions, and this is from Sungrazer, who's another new publisher. This is the prequel novel to the popular YA series Star-Crossed. That was a modern retelling of the Iliad. And the original novels published in the early 2010s, and they still sell well in backlists today. It's a YA series, and it ties in perfectly with the current trend towards Greek mythology themed fiction. And this one features Ajax and Daphne in 1990s New York City. Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, 100 Inspiring Young Changemakers is the newest entry in the Rebel Girls series. These are these big collections that are $35. They transitioned to Two Rivers a while ago from Simon & Schuster, and this collection features 100 little vignettes across all sorts of spectrums, from art to music to athletics to activism, and is sure to have heroes that different kids want to read about. Presence of Absence from Godine is the newest bit of beauty from the beloved Simon Bambui, following his indie darling Night Came with Many Stars. It's another story of love, loss, devotion, and gratitude, featuring an author on his deathbed. Patty Lyons' Knitting Book of Tricks is up next, and she is something of a firecracker. She's a huge self-promoter. She's all over the various internets, and she's just everywhere right now. She's here to clean up your knitting and help you fix mistakes, like she did for Seth Meyers on his literal show. It's more stitch and bitch than a traditional knitting book, and it's one of those things you can throw in your knitting bag or in your pocket to take with you when you have a problem and you can't figure out how to fix it. The next title, very superstitious. This is one that I'm selling a lot of in my appointments. This is from Welbeck, and it's a little gem of a book featuring illustrations that look very much like tarot cards and the stories, histories, minutiae, and weirdness behind 100 different superstitions from around the world. It's very, very easy to backlist this kind of title. It's perfect on the Halloween table, but then it's got just enough weird facts that you want to stick it in a section, probably reference. One Thursday Afternoon from Flyaway Books is the next, and this is the kids imprint of Presbyterian John Knox Publishing, and it's an unfortunately timely title about an upper elementary aged girl that is struggling to process her feelings after having a lockdown drill at school. The drill scared her, and she's picked up by her grandfather while they go out for some art and drawing, and it just gives strategies that parents and teachers and caregivers can give to the discussions that they have with their children about talking about these sorts of things. Next up from our beloved New Press comes Worn Out, a hard-hitting look at the world of fast fashion and how harmful it is on all fronts. It will really change the way you look at clothes and how they're made, along with where you buy them. It was one of those things where I hadn't considered what fast fashion was actually doing to the world around us until I really dipped into this, and it's shocking. Another crafting gem, making murals. This is the mural making book for the rest of us that are not artists, and is virtually the only book on the market aimed at the non-professionals. It gives expert tips on placing, scaling, materials, and more. And it's really something that a lot of people got into redoing their houses during the COVID quarantines and the various lockdowns. And this is something that a lot of people really started looking for help on with Instagram and TikTok. Another craft title, Trash Craft. This is fairly self-explanatory in that it's 24 projects that are all made from various trash items around your house, school, or wherever you are. It's perfect for schools, preschools, vacation programs, more day camps, and a lot of them are fairly simple. So this would be something that is aimed probably at the under 12 set, but it's easily adjusted for more in-depth projects. Plant Words is next, and this is one of my favorite titles on the list, and it's a perfect stocking stuffer for the botanist, gardener, and general plant lover. The trim size is small. It's a gorgeous little hardcover. It's something of a dictionary encyclopedia hybrid, and it has 250 terms curated from the Kew Royal Botanic Gardens, which has a listing of over 5,000 botanical terms. And it includes the history, the usage, folklore, and then it also has these great line drawings throughout for every entry. And then finally, FIFA World Cup 2022 Kids Handbook for the upcoming World Cup tournament that takes place in Qatar in November. This little gem features team stats, player bios, history, facts, activities. Welbeck also has a few other titles centered around the tournament for both kids and adults. And this is a great thing to put on the features table. Normally the tournaments take place in the summer, but because of the stifling heat in Qatar, they're moving it to November. So along with having to try to cram everything onto your holiday tables, you now have this added bonus as well. And that's all I have. And I have no idea if I'm on time or not. Thanks.
You did well. Thank you so much, Katie. And up next, we have Bill, who is going to cover Publishers Group West.
It helps to be unmuted. I'll try to do this quickly because I picked too many books. The first book I have up is actually two books by Claire Keegan, who's one of my favorite writers. Her latest book, Ship, is Small Things Like This, came out last year. It's just been longlisted for the Booker. And if you're a Guinness's Book of World Records person, it's the shortest book ever to be nominated for a Booker. Beautiful, unforgettable tale of a coal merchant, Bill Furlong, who encounters a young woman in the Magdalen laundries and eventually decides to do the right thing. When you finish this book, you realize it's been a privilege to spend time with a man who quietly does the right thing. Shipping later this fall is Foster, an even shorter book about the child sent to live with relatives while her mother has a baby. Hilary Mantel's quote sums Claire up perfectly. Foster confirms Claire Keegan's talent. She creates luminous effects with spare material, so every line seems to be a lesson in the perfect deployment of both style and emotion. She's one of my favorite writers, and if you haven't read her, why not? The books are really short. You can read her really quickly. Since we're talking about winning honors, Ada Leome from Milkweed has just been appointed our 24th Poet Laureate. Her books sell much better than most poetry ever does. And if you look at the much love for her titles, I've never seen that much love for poetry books on Edelweiss. The Hurting Kind is her latest in hardcover, and she has 3 titles in backlist, which are in the comps. You should have them all in stock. She's the Poet Laureate. On to a bit of current events. The Fed's raising of interest rates is in the news every day, the subject of a lot of debate. We have 2 books on this subject. The Price of Time, Edward Chancellor presents an extensive history of interest rates, from ancient Babylon to the current time. It's anything but dry. To cut to the chase, Chandler shows that low interest rates and loose money always results in not just inflation, but the growth of inequality. Interesting, though, the Chancellor approaches the subject from the center right. Lev Menan in The Fed Unbound approaches the same subject from the center left and comes up with the same conclusion. Easy money means inequality. We expect a lot of attention for both these books as the Fed keeps raising interest rates. The last, in nonfiction, The Need to Be Whole, Patriotism and the History of Prejudice. Wendell Berry is shifting his worldview a little bit from the environment to race, but bringing the same wisdom that he applied to the natural world in the past. At 88, he decided he had something to say on the subject and should be reviewed and covered extensively. Back to fiction for a couple of my favorite reads this season, both coming out in trade paper. Animal Life covers a few days before Christmas as an Icelandic midwife reads a trove of papers written by her great aunt, who is also a midwife. She's a very sneaky writer, in that I would often think not much is happening till I'd be stopped cold when I realize a lot just changed. It just happened quietly. Pay attention. She's one of my favorite writers, and I've read almost everything she's written. Slow Word Song, Andrew Miller's new book, a former British soldier and recovering alcoholic, receives a request to appear before a committee examining what happened during the Troubles. This causes him to recall the life that led him to this point. His attempt to make sense of it and to reconnect with his estranged daughter is truly moving, as is his decision to appear before the committee. Besides it being a great piece of writing, it will resonate now as committees in Ireland are currently being formed to review individual actions during the Troubles. Moving from Iceland to Ireland to Japan, the author of Convenience Store Woman and Earthlings' new collection of short stories, Life Ceremony, has just hit the shelf. I just love her writing. She's so bizarre, so interesting. If you like a particularly skewed look at society, you can't get much better than this. Dwight Gardner in the New York Times said, Murata pushes on the ordinary until it extrudes into unusual shapes. If you're looking for a standard 9-to-5 world, you won't find it here. But if you want something truly strange, these stories qualify. Jonathan Coe has a new novel, Mr. Wilder and Me. Excuse me. Charming coming-of-age story about a young woman who gets a job working for Billy Wilder toward the end of his life. It's a wonderful portrait of a great film director, worried that he's no longer in touch or relevant, and a woman discovering the excitement of creativity for the first time. I think you can recommend this to anyone, but particularly to any film buff. The American reviews should be just as good as the British reviews. Brother Alive, a debut novel which follows 3 adopted brothers who live above a mosque in Staten Island with their imam father. Glowing review in the Times called it Rushdie with none of the ceremony, the searing collage of the profound and mundane. That's just one of the many great reviews it's already received and continues to receive. PW called it host to some of the most complex, necessary characters in recent memory. This one's a winner. Okay, on to something that I just really like because it's fun. Area Winter series. It needs some bookseller love since reviews for edgy cozies are few and far between. It follows all the standard tropes of a British cozy. Small English village filled with eccentric characters, protagonist who bakes for a living. Except Arya is 27 years old. She hates people and lets them know, likes casual sex, and bakes macabre desserts. Kind of Miss Marple meets Fleabag. Both laugh out loud, funny and poignant at the same time. I think you can recommend this to any mystery fan looking for something new and something that isn't quite in the mainstream. To tie this up, a couple of books that tie into the current situation in the Ukraine. I Will Die in a Foreign Land. It's been out for a while in paperback. It's an amazing fictional look at the earlier conflict between Russia and the Ukraine. It's received nothing but rare, great reviews. And I think anyone interested in the subject of Ukraine would be interested in it. And Red Comet's Yellow Butterfly, a wordless picture book showing the effects of war on kids. The Wolf Suit is a long picture book that has been the hit of the fall list for most of my accounts. It's about the pressures of conformity and the joys of community, as a young sheep dresses up in a wolf's uniform to stay safe and slowly discovers that everyone else is dressed up in a uniform to protect themselves from the wolf. And then finally, Saturnalia, literary horror story set in the near future in Philadelphia. A little frightening, lots of fun, and very, very well written. And I think I came in under time.
You did. You still have 2 minutes if there's anything else you wanted to cover.
Okay, let's go back to Claire Keegan because I like her so much. My favorite signed galley came from Claire Keegan. I went to the publishing party for her first book, and she at one point said to me, "It's getting warm in here. Could we go outside and sit on the stoop and have a beer?" We were sitting on the stoop and having a beer, and this tall, regal blonde walks by and yelled at us, "You can't sit here and drink beer." Her next book she inscribed to me, to Bill, who shared a beer with me when Uma Thurman said we oughtn't. We were ranked out by Uma Thurman, my favorite galley quote. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Bill. And up next, we have Jason, who will talk about consortium titles.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Kincaid from Parson Weems, and I'm here this afternoon to talk about consortium and some of the big books we have coming for fall. I also have a lot of titles, so I'm going to go pretty fast. So first up is Maroons by Adrienne Marie Brown. You all know Adrienne Marie Brown from Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism, but she's also an incredibly accomplished science fiction writer. And Maroons is the second novel in what she's calling the Grievers trilogy, which takes place in an alternate Detroit that's been ravaged by an incredible pandemic that literally stops people in their tracks mid-sentence, mid-action, and mid-life, casting them into a non-responsive state from which no one recovers. This is also a consortium, and IPS have a consortium has a promo special, 5 copies for a $25 automatic credit, and this qualifies for that. Next up from Akashic is Joe Mino, Book of Extraordinary Tragedies. You might know Joe Mino from Hairstyles of the Damned, which is a mainstay of the Akashic backlist. Well, this is Joe Mino's next book, following the travails of Alexander and Isabel, who were Eastern European siblings growing up in Chicago, on their way to becoming classical music prodigies, when family and life get in the way. And this is one of LitHub's most anticipated books of 2023. Next up from And Other Stories, Get 'Em Young, Treat 'Em Tough, Tell 'Em Nothing from Robin McLean. Robin McLean had a previous novel called Pity the Beast that came out last year that sold really, really well. It was a great big bookseller favorite. But she's really a master of the short story form, and this is her returning to that form in Get 'Em Young, Treat 'Em Tough, and Tell 'Em Nothing. The next up from Arsenal Pulp, The Future is Disabled by Leah Lakshmi. This follows up from her book Care Work, which came out a few years ago. She's a disability rights activist, and this is basically expanding on her previous book, which is a bestseller, bringing it up to date and her experiences during the pandemic and how the pandemic has affected disability rights and people who are disabled. The next is from Beehive. This is an absolutely gorgeous tarot card deck from Beehive Botanica, Herbalist Tarot. You can see it here. It's absolutely gorgeous. Great value for money. There's 78 cards in a drawer box, a paperback book, a golden charm, embroidered patch, 4 stickers, and 6 postcards. Next up from Biblioasis, Case Study by Graham McCrae Burnett. This was recently nominated for the International Booker Prize, and we're expecting that it's going to get major review attention here. This is also in the consortium co-op special, historical fiction, psychological fiction, literary thriller, and unreliable narrators and various combinations thereof, and it's incredibly funny. Next up from Biblioasis, Roy Jacobson has a series called The Barrow Chronicles, and there were 3 previous books in it, and it was originally going to be a trilogy. There was Eyes of the Rigel, White Shadow, and the Unseen. Well, he loved doing this character so much that he's basically going to continue the series indefinitely, and this is the follower. Next up from Blair, this might be my absolute favorite book on the consortium list, Girlhood, Letter to My Transgender Daughter. Basically, this is exactly what it says in the subtitle. The author was struggling with her transgender daughter in the South, and really it's just a love letter to her. It's incredibly well written. We're going to get a lot of review attention for it. It's absolutely 100% a wonderful, wonderful story. Next up from BOA, Your Emergency Contact Has Experienced an Emergency by Chen Chen. You might know Chen Chen from his book, When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Further Possibilities, which was nominated for the National Book Award. This is going to be one of the poetry collections of the fall. It's already getting incredible buzz. It's incredible poetry, and he's a force to be reckoned with. Next up from Charco, Dislocations. It's an Argentinian author who sadly died recently, but she was based here in New York before that. And Caroline Casey, who's the publicist for Charco, likens this to Bluets for dementia. It's basically a creative look at how memory loss is experienced through the lens of language. And as with everything Charco does, the writing and the translation are unbelievable. Next up from Coach House, what we talk about when we talk about dumplings. This is an essay collection, basically taking a deep dive into the dumpling, which has a representation in pretty much every cuisine around the world. It also has recipes, and the writing is pithy and funny and warm, and it could be a fun gift, I think. Next up from Coffee House, Alive at the End of the World. What can I say? Cy Jones is absolutely a rock star in the poetry world. This is I'm not a big poetry reader, but I absolutely devoured this. He's incredibly well connected, has a major platform, not only in the poetry world, but also in major media. It's just actually like with Chen Chen, this is going to be the poetry collection from Consortium for the fall. Next up from Copper Canyon, I'll just touch on this briefly. This is a big compendium, 500 pages of 50 years of poetry from Copper Canyon Press. Again, a really lovely gift book for the poetry lover in your life. Dalkey Archive Press, you might have known that they've recently relaunched and are in the series, they're basically relaunching Dalkey Archive, books from the Dalkey Archive. This is Aldous Huxley. A satiric view of intellectual life in the 20s, populated with himself, D.H. Lawrence, Catherine Mansfield, Oswald Mosley, Nancy Cunard, as well as a cast of other characters. And it's really absolutely wonderful. Unruly is the young adult imprint from Enchanted Lion, whom you all know. And Beatrice Alemania had a previous book called Child of Glass, which was wonderful and sold really well. So this is Snow White from the Evil Queen's perspective, and the feature here is that it has absolutely incredible, beautiful art. Okay, next up from Giles, Musical Crossroads. This is another amazing book, I think one of my favorites on the fall list. Basically, this is a dive into the collection of Black music ephemera from the National Museum of African American History in DC, 200 illustrations, and it really is a comprehensive history of Black music in America. Next up from Haymarket, Waking Beauty, Rebecca Solnit. This is very much in the vein of her previous book like this, which is called Cinderella Liberator. It's basically a feminist retelling of a classic children's story. Next up from New Vessel. Every year, New Vessel explores the traditions and life of a holiday in a different country, and this year it's Mexico. The previous books have been Russia, Italy, Scandinavian, et cetera, and they're all very beautiful, and it's a great value for money. Next up from the School of Life, Phone Detox. This is really kind of, basically it's a palm-sized book filled with a variety of insights. It's a clever counter to the endless scrolling that we all are doing on our phones. So instead of living your life in your phone, you can live your life in this book. Next up from World Editions, Abyss by Pilar Quintana. Her previous book, Bitch, was a National Book Awards finalist. And this is a young girl reflecting on her parents' troubled marriage, and she's trying to construct her own reality by predicting or interpreting what is said and what is not said. Next up from Albatross Media, My Cup of Art. This is an absolutely gorgeous high concept kids book with pop-up elements. Each spread is a different artist and has a different pop-up. It also has a pocket in the back where you can insert your own artwork. Okay, next up from Burbet, another very, very sweet book. Hello, it seems easy to say, but what happens if you miss the chance to greet someone and then keep seeing that same person again and again? Awkward encounters between Mr. Wolf and Little Fox show readers how saying hello right from the beginning could have made all the difference. And next up from Blue Dot Kids Press, The Moon Tonight, Our Moon's Journey Around the Earth. This follows our moon as it waxes and wanes across the night sky. It's a very informative and stunning nonfiction picture book by an astronomer and an award-winning illustrator. Next up from Cicada, Altizaken. This is again one of my favorite books on the list. This follows Bobby Rosa and her grandson Benji as they wander the streets of Brooklyn and Manhattan, gathering ingredients for Sunday dinner. Bobby is a Holocaust survivor and is really not only exploring the present day, but her memories of her life and her past and the tragedies and joys that she has experienced. Next up from Enchanted Lion Press, Truth About Max. You probably all know The Provinsons and A Year at Maple Hill Farm. This story is this was a manuscript that was left in a drawer. It's previously unpublished. Max was one of the characters in the previous Provinson Farm books. Absolutely, it was a 7-year labor of love for Claudia Bedrick, who's the publisher of Enchanted Lion. And these are beloved characters, and this is an absolutely adorable book. Okay, next up from Florist, The Last Rainbow Bird. This is two children are searching for a unique endangered bird in a vibrant, hopeful story which joyfully celebrates difference. It introduces children to environmental themes of wildlife conservation, species extinction, and
Jason, you muted yourself.
sorry about that. It's printed using sustainably sourced paper and plant-based inks. Next up from Scribble, Off to the Market. This is a juvenile picture book about harvesting sustainable food with fun facts, delicious new foods, and charming characters. And then next up from the School of Life, Big Ideas from History. This is the latest edition in School of Life's Big Ideas series. It spans the ages in an easy to follow way. It covers prehistory, ancient history, the Middle Ages, industrialization, the modern world, and the future. This basically makes history fascinating and relevant to kids and renders complicated material accessible to a younger audience without condescension. I believe that's it.
Perfect. I was just about to say it was time. Excellent.